It is now 2 o'clock, so it is time for the meeting of the Standing Committee on Education. I want to welcome all the members and welcome everybody who is online. Today's meeting is taking place in Committee Room 2, 4th floor, Wales Street. And my apologies I'm going to blame my body, went to the chamber as opposed to coming to Committee Room 2. So I think welcome to everyone as indicated. And I'm going to give the members an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we will introduce the WCED officials and anyone who is online. So I'm Leon van Wyk, the chair of the Standing Committee on Education.
Thomas Walters, a member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon to those online. I'm Memory Boyson, a member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members, all departmental officials online. My name is Wendy Kaiser-Philander, and I'm a member of this committee.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Donita Stevens, and I'm a member of this committee.
Thank you very much there. I also want to welcome our procedural officer, Ms. Hassan Musa, and then I want to go over onto the online platform. I understand that Member Christians is online.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson. Ferlin Christians, member of this committee.
Thank you very much, Member Christians. And then I would like to just welcome the WCED officials. I think if you could introduce yourselves, please.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, members. My name is Bertram Lauriston. I'm the Deputy Director General for Curriculum and Assessment Management. I just want to check with you, Chairperson. Am I audible?
Yes, you certainly are audible. I think I see on the screen as we do see the recording and transcription. Is there any way that we can just take that little sign away and then we can see Mr. Lauriston at a distance at least? I think just a moment there. Okay, we're coming up there. We can see you, Mr. Lauriston.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, just for procedures, do you prefer me to have my camera on while we do the presentation, or would you like me to turn it off?
Look, I think it's I think it's usual just for us to turn off over there. And I think, so that'll certainly work for us. I'm just checking on any other, anyone else there that we need to. I see Mr. Benjamin's also there.
Chairperson, I'm just going to ask the team who's with me to introduce themselves. I'll introduce and they'll just switch on the cameras for record purposes. So I'll start with Mr. Juan Benjamin. Mr. Benjamin is our Chief Director for Curriculum and Assessment and Teacher Development. Then we have Mrs. Karen Dudley. She's our Director for the GET phase, that is grade R to grade 9, and she's responsible for the implementation of the curriculum in those grades. Then I have with me as well the Acting Director for the FET phase, Dr. Glynis Schroeder. Dr. Schroeder is acting in the place of Mr. Don Haripasat, who retired at the end of December last year. And then we also have the Chief Education Specialist with us for Foundation phase, Mrs. Almared Tutwe. And that's the team that is with me, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lauriston, for those introductions. I think if we can then move to the program for this afternoon, and we, as a committee, we've requested a briefing by the Western Cape Education Department on its maths and reading strategy, as well as the availability of schools in the Western Cape that offer instruction in learners' first languages or mother tongues, and ensuring that the language needs of all learners are being met. So I think at this stage, I will hand over to you, Mr. Lauriston, to do the presentation. And I think just before I do that, just to take note that member Syed has tabled his apology for today's meeting. And then we will then just ask members to save any questions or comments that they may have until the end of the presentation, and then we will deal with those at that stage. So I think I'll hand over to you, Mr. Lauriston.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, colleagues. Once again, good afternoon to the committee members. It was quite a challenge to get all the activities into a slideshow for you, but however, we are prepared to respond in full if there's any points for clarity during our presentation. So we focus basically on the activities that will guide us through the process to clearly explain to you what the reading strategy and mathematics strategy is all about within the different phases, as well as to highlight to you the flagship activities and engagements that we have embedded in our presentation to ensure that there's clarity of purpose and that we also can see the alignment with both national as well provincial priorities, but also to ensure that we address the needs of all the learners within our system that we currently manage. So, committee members, this afternoon we will focus on the reading and mathematics strategy. This is captured in 5 pillars: learner and teacher support material, parent and community, teacher support, learner support, and research and advocacy. So I'll take you through each one of these pillars to ensure that you at least have a clear understanding of the activities that we implement under each one of these pillars, but also to ensure that you can see the holistic picture that we were trying to paint with regards to reading and mathematics, because it cannot be an activity that contributes to the success of our strategy. So once again, I just want to highlight to you, the Western Cape Education Department is rich in data. We have been doing the systemic since 2004, and therefore this data informed our decisions and our drive towards continuous improvement. We also measure ourselves against the other countries within the international testing, like the TIMS, the PILS, SACMEC, and then obviously the TALIS that will be released in October of 2025, that will give us a picture of the performance of both our teachers and our learners. If we disaggregate this information, the international data that I've just highlighted, you find that it shows that we have continuous improvement up to a certain point. We had COVID, we identified the learning losses using the data that I've just cited, so that we can actually track to see whether we can actually bring all of these learners up to par onto the levels where they should actually be. So within that, we've introduced the Back on Track program that focused both on our learners as well as our teachers. And we also had a sector analysis that's done by the World Bank. From this, we will notice that the national and the provincial focus remains the foundational learning areas, and I would like to highlight that throughout our presentation. So if you look at our first slide, it speaks to the learner, the teacher material that we have produced. And I think if you look at literature across Africa as well as the rest of the world, you'll notice that it highlights the importance of developing quality materials that must form part of your strategy. And this is why we have this as one of our pillars and foci within the strategy, to ensure that there's a relevant and current material that is interesting to both our teachers and our learners, to make the lessons more exciting and to ensure that what we teach is actually enjoyable for our learners. The WCD does have experts within our employ, and I think our experts assisted with the development of many of these materials. Just to highlight a few of what we have available is our virtual library, where we have now the 12th edition already. It's about 60 books that we have on different levels that we have these books available within our library. And is accessible by many of our teachers. Then we have the provisioning of readers and anthologies in the Afrikaans classes and the English classes. We have in the foundation phase, we have decodable graded readers. That is in line with what we would like to achieve through the science of reading, which is our strategy, and the different approaches to teaching the language within the foundation phase. In our isiXhosa classes, we have anthologies available that was once again developed in co-creation with the WCD officials. Obviously, we have the learner books in our system. We have teachers resources like the big books, the teacher guides, different other documents that are available for our teachers. We have lesson plans that are available on our e-portal, and it's not limited to our teachers only, but it's available to many others as well. And then we have the revised annual teaching plans that people refer to as the ATPs, and the teacher guides that align with these ATPs. Just to highlight other resources that we have, as there's the Grow Smart workbooks. We have the primary school reading intervention program. We have the incremental introduction of African languages resources that are available there. Those are for the schools, mostly our English and Afrikaans schools, that where we had learners that were not exposed to other African languages. And then we have the Woorde Open Wêrelde, which is the WOW, that is managed by the Sanlam there. Then the Sounds in Focus, as well as the mother tongue-based bilingual education resources for targeted schools this year only. If you look at the second pillar that we have, it's the pillar that needs a lot of work and it needs a lot of commitment from the whole of society. Because it poses a challenge to us if education is tasked with this alone. So this requires a collaborative approach from different role players, and we are working with those role players to make sure that this can actually happen within our system. So we continuously promote parental involvement in the processes that we do to assist our learners. We focus obviously on reading and mathematics, because both of them does have a dependency on the development of a vocabulary, and that is pre-schooling vocabulary and activities and skills that they have to require. And obviously, what brings us to this point is where we have to say the whole of society then have to take responsibility for the equipping these learners with these skills, knowledge, and then how to do it. What our aim is to show people, parents and the community what they can do and how easy it is for them to actually assist the learners. And this is the aim of this pillar. So what we do have is we have our power hours, our webinars, our conferences. I've attended quite a few of our own webinars and I've learned a lot because I'm not all of us are schooled in all the phases, and would encourage you as well, if you need a rise, to actually sit in on our webinars. It really speaks to the parents, and the last one I attended, there were about 650 participants on the platform, and many of them were parents, and the types of questions allow you to actually respond effectively to our parents to ensure that they have a better understanding of what it is and how simple it is to actually assist their learners. We have radio interviews, social media campaigns, the Reading Ambassador program that we have, and advocating the reading and various platforms, the celebration of different international days like the Reading Aloud Day, and then the parent upskilling through the home learning project. It's one of the projects I'll highlight later on during the presentation, because I do think it is something that actually feeds into the idea of whole of society approach towards the reading strategy that the WCED envisage. The second pillar, or the third pillar that we have there, is about teacher support. Now, this one, I'll cover the section through 4 slides. And see there, slide 1 of 4. And I just want to highlight that that all the research that we currently have shows that professional teacher development, in-service teacher development is as important as initial teacher education, because the changing world is continuously driving towards the development of new skills with our learners, and our teachers need to be schooled and framed within these skill sets that are required for future engagement by our learners. Secondly, why we have a focus on this is to ensure that our learning outcomes are addressed, that we have continuous improvement of our learning outcomes in the system. And I'm fully aware that we invest a lot of money in the NSC examinations to see the results. However, our focus through teacher development is to ensure that the foundational learnings in the system, the entire system, is cemented so that we have a solid foundation on which we can actually build towards improved learning outcomes. It's one of our main achievements. So if we look at teacher support, we have the teacher guides for languages and mathematics that is available. And obviously it's being mediated by our subject advisors at district level to ensure that there's a good understanding of what the expectations are. The rest I've mentioned, the WOW competition that we have there. We've trained our teachers into the methodology of how to manage this, but how to utilize it in a beneficial way within the classrooms, because if we have an intervention or an activity, if it doesn't reach the classroom, it doesn't contribute to our aim of improving the teaching and learning practices, and then obviously the improvement of our learning outcomes. Then we have the reading for meaning of 116 isiXhosa teachers trained in the grade 7 to 9 classes. The sounds in focus we have there, and then we also have the itinerant teachers that assist us with the incremental introduction to African languages within grades 4 to 5. To ensure that we have traction from the foundation phase into the intermediate phase, as well as make sure that our principals and our subject advisors are equipped to actually support our teachers in this process.
Mr. Lauriston, we seem to have lost you there. I'm not sure if Mr. Lauriston, if you've lost
Chairperson,
sound. Yeah.
are we still connected? Because we got a notification here.
Yes, I think we sort of lost you there for a moment, a good few seconds ago. I think we got to the point probably where we were at the end of 1 of 4, I imagine. I'm not sure if you iterant teachers. I think that's where you were.
Okay. I will ask one of my colleagues to observe, and if I lose connectivity again, they will then alert me if we can put that arrangement in place. Thank you. The itinerant teachers, as explained to you, the itinerant teachers that assist various schools in the implementation of the African languages, mostly in Afrikaans and English LOL schools throughout our system. Then if we look at the 2 of 4, the teacher development, we have the WC spelling competition where we have 87 teachers trained in the methodology once again. The reading improvement program, 410 teachers are planned across 48 schools. The reading to learn, 150 teachers in grade 7 and grade to 9. Just noting, in the foundation phase, we teach you to read. In the intermediate phase, we start utilizing the term to say you have to read to learn. And then obviously in the higher grades, we move over to reading with meaning, as well as critical evaluation of information while reading. So we have the progressive strategy to ensure that the skill sets are being built up our learners throughout the system. In the ISCOSA, we had the essay writing and reading, which are two elements of language teaching. That is very prominent in the, or areas that we need to more in. We have our novice teacher training, and then the establishments of professional learning communities throughout the system for the various subjects, not only in the foundation phase or intermediate phase, but throughout our system. We encourage the establishment and support our schools to actually come up with professional learning communities where teachers learn from each other, where they share information, where they develop material together, because they are best placed to deal with the different diverse contexts in which they are actually working. And then obviously we have our on-site advisors. I would also like to just pause a little bit with the MTBBE here, the training for targeted teachers. What do I mean with that? What we have in place as the Western Cape Education Department with the strategy, the multi-tongue bilingual education strategy that we have there, is to ensure that our teachers that we need meet firstly the need of our teachers. So we have surveyed our schools. Secondly, our focus for 2025 is on grade 4, and in 2026, we will move it to 4 as well as grade 5. We're currently only focusing on mathematics as well as natural sciences will be the two subjects in which we will do the versioning of material, which is a collaboration with two universities in our area, UWC as well as UCT. And then we will roll out to about 187 schools across the province to make sure that the needs of both our teachers as well as our learners are being met, and in that way to promote the development of key concepts in the mother tongue, where they were taught in the foundation phase in their mother tongue, and they have to transition from grade 3 to grade 4 into another language. We continue with the two main areas that requires support, and that is mathematics as well as the natural sciences that requires the support of the development of key concepts. So that is the mother tongue-based bilingual education that we have there. As indicated, the summary, we will focus on grade 4 in 2025. And I also have to note to the committee that we will start in April because materials were not ready from all levels, and the WCD took it on themselves to develop quality materials to support both our teachers and learners, and that materials are now ready for us to actually disseminate to our schools, but ensure that our teachers are well trained and supported to implement this. Just from the Cape Teaching and Leadership Institute, CTLI, that we have in Kuilsriver, these are just a summary of the courses that we have. And for noting purposes, the courses that we decide on are aligned with the priorities and the focuses of both the National Department of Education, but with as well as the Provincial Department of Education of what we would like to achieve. You'll also find that we align ourselves with our indicators in the APP, as well as the information that we get from the system. For example, the systemics, but also the QMS. The QMS is the quality assurance system that the teachers use to being used to evaluate themselves as well as their peers in the system, and that feeds into the decisions that we make of which of the courses we would like to offer, because obviously we can offer a myriad of courses and have zero impact. And I think our drive from this point is where we've recalibrated ourselves as well, is to ensure that what we implement, what we offer, we would like to measure, and what we like to measure, we would like to see the impact in the system, because with the information that we have, for example, the systemics, we would like to utilize it more effectively so that we find the points of acceleration within the system. So there you can see what we offer in the different grades, grade 2 and 3. Grade 3s, we mostly focus on fractions 4 to 7, that we have basic operations, fractions, and measurement. And you'll see later on in the systemics why we would like to cement the bottom so that we have a better outcome at the top. In the FET mathematics, we're targeting the setting of quality assessment task, because we do believe that if we have quality assessment task across the system, we impact on the teaching and learning processes, because we do believe quality assessment task is not about the test or the assignment only. It's about the analysis that happens post-marking, so that we have a whole strategy around what we would like to achieve with the setting of quality assessments. And that's why I'm emphasizing it, because we do believe that is a driver that we could use within the systems. We also have the JICA methodology, which is a lesson study methodology that we would introduce to actually make sure that our teachers are comfortable with co-creation of material that can be shared with their colleagues, but at the level where if I take a lesson plan from one person, I can actually implement it, but I also get the remedial information by the way of questioning that I have through the system. I think that is a lack in our system, and that is why we also opted for that session there as well. Then we have our power hours, and then we had 1,200 mathematics teachers attending the Math Curriculum online conference in 2024 as well. For sorry, still teacher development, I'll rush to this one. We have 120 teachers that we were trained in reading for meaning and writing in grade 4 to 9. And I just want to emphasize once again here, we have a strategy focusing on the science of reading in the foundation phase, the learners transition from grade 3 to grade 4, and we then accept that all of them are reading for meaning in the grade 4 classes, noting that we have a system of regular monitoring annually in the foundation phase, which we call the EGRA, which deals with the fluency of reading. And now, with all of the effort that we placed on the foundation phase, we are going to make sure that when the learner reaches grade 4, that the traction that we have with these learners, that is actually enhanced through the processes that we put in place to ensure that the reading strategy continues within this phase, to ensure that that reading for meaning is not a once-off event. It's a skill that is being developed over time. And I think many times people quote Browse, they quote Mississippi. If you look at those two research models, you're going to find it happened over time. And once again, what we have in place must be aligned to support the entire system, not a specific phase or a specific grade. Then we have our online courses, because many of our teachers also prefer online courses so they can exercise self-directed learning. Then we also have about 350 teachers targeted in the foundation phase for group guided reading courses, which forms an integral part of our strategy. And then reading for meaning, and then our novice teachers, and to make sure that once they come into the system, that they clearly understand and have a good grasp of what the WCD is aiming to achieve through the strategy. Otherwise, you have tension in the system of what is in the system and what the novice teachers are bringing to the system, not discarding their knowledge, not discarding innovation as well, but just to ensure that they understand what we are trying to achieve with the process. Because one of the things that we have to look, if we analyze it, is there must be a consistent application of focused intervention over time to change the ship around. And this is what we have entailed doing from this point forward. Then we also have our learner support processes, and there you can see once again, with the data and information that we have available, we've decided to have a different approach of in Afrikaans, English, as well as isiXhosa. And our approach to actually teaching reading would be the scientific methodology. And in our isiXhosa context, we're going to find we more have a structured language approach due to the way that the learning takes place of the prefixes, postfixes that is being added to the words as the learners move along. But in the English and Afrikaans, we're also not using the same methodology because we cannot juxtapose the one on the other like we did in the past. So Afrikaans has its own way, English has their way, and isiXhosa, but all of them are based on the basic principle of the science of reading to ensure that we reach our target and our aim, which is reading for meaning by the age 10 years old. Obviously, we would like to have more tuition time within our system, where with targeted learners, and here we have our special needs education section involved as well, because it cannot be curriculum that drives this alone. So our special needs education has come aboard, and they're now targeting specific learners in specific areas of study as well as development, because it's not about reading only. It's about milestone development. It's about maturity development that we have to look at before we can actually say, as well as our perceptual skills, before we can say what is needed for this child to read with meaning by the age of 10 years old. So it's a collective and collaborative effort from the different knowledge sectors within education, and we actually pulling that together as well. Then for the higher grades, we obviously have the math curriculum online, as well as the Siavula that we're promoting, of reading eggs. And then also one of the others that I said I'll come back to is the home learning support via the DCAS and the Year Beyond program, mostly where we focus on need learners. Those are not at high institutions or employed currently, and we mobilize them to assist within these communities with various activities, which I'll explain to you. Obviously, we have a targeted approach through the extra tuition processes with the back on track processes, specifically in our intermediate and our senior phase, as well as in our foundation phase. And then we also have the telematics from the University of Stellenbosch, and then our online resources are available for intermediate phase, senior phase, and FET mathematics. And I would like you to visit our online e-portal to offer yourself with the quality of the resources that are available to both teachers, learners, and accessible to everybody there. Our own school hubs at our education district offices are also available. Then our next pillar is our research and advocacy campaign. Now we have the synthetic phonic program, which is the way that we teach the reading process. And there we have the sounds focus for grade 4 to 6. We have the spelling festival for grade 4 isiXhosa learners, which was, I think we were instrumental in establishing. Then we have the WCD Story Stars, the writing competition. And if you look through what we are trying to promote here is, yes, we're not targeting all the learners. Competitions you usually don't target all the learners, and that's usually the criticism. But if you look at it, we're targeting all the different elements of the language that we have in the system, but we're giving everybody, we have extra tuition for those who are struggling, but also for those learners who are excelling at the top end of our spectrum. We're also catering through these competitions and also giving them exposure of competing and measuring themselves, not against their school only, but against other learners as well. So that is what we have under our research and advocacy. The second part of our research and advocacy is just the systemic results. And if we look at the systemic results, you're going to find that we can use our 2019 results as our baseline to say we need to reach those targets. And if you look at those targets, then you think in the grade 3 for mathematics 24, we're quite close to it. And I just want to highlight, if you look from 2021, where we actually had the impact of COVID. We saw the impact of COVID. That's also the year where we've utilized the information to start having the conversation, the dialogue on learning losses in the world. And if you look at that and you look at 2024, you find that there was an increase in the grade 3 in the foundation phase with 11.6 percentile points. I can't at this point translate that in the number of days that we have gained through the system, but I think the RECEP report that I'll also refer to later will have more clarity on the number of days that our programs have actually reduced the learning losses within the system. If you look at the grade 9s, it's still extremely low, and we have our plans in place because although we measure grade 9s, we have to remember that the in-between grades are bringing out the results. So that will also then be a foci of how we're going to move mathematics through the system. Then if you look at the languages, you will be able to see that in 2021, we had a 36.9% achievement rate, and in 2024, 45.4% achievement rate. That is an 8.5 percentage over 3-year period, which means our programs are working. It means that the teacher focus that we had in these programs should continue because the learners move through the system. And I do believe that if we want to build a stronger system, we have to continue building on our teachers. Obviously, within the other sections, we're not on the 2019 level yet because we've targeted approaches. We targeted the foundation phase, grade 4, grade 7, all the entry levels, grade 8 and grade 10 in the system. So that should start showing now if we look further into the system. One of your requests was also that we look at the back on track process and then the learning losses recovery program underpinning specifically reading and mathematics. Once again, what did we utilize here? We had our data and we had our different reports, both from DBE research reports as well as internally in the province. And we were the only province that could manage to actually implement a program at scale. I have to compliment the colleagues around who are with me here to deal with learning losses in our system. And I do think it does add value if we look at the early indications within the system. Obviously, as I said, education is not realized within one evening, but over time, the outcomes will show within the system and our learning improvements needs to be there over time. So if we look at the back on track, you'll find the theoretical framework highlights the 4 priorities on which it was based. However, we've focused on the prioritization of information, and we had looked at the adjusted curriculum that was offered in the different subjects. We've prioritized the numeracy and literacy and the socio-emotional skills of our learners as well as our teachers, and we had focus instruction on closing the gaps between desired and actual outcomes for our learners in the system, and that is what the back on track process is all about. So I need to move on, otherwise my time is going to catch me. And once again, I'll unpack the back on track within the 5 pillars to ensure that we cover it all. There's just a background over the years of the back on track. Obviously, 2023 is the year where we've made the bold 2022, end of 2023, the year where we made the bold decision utilizing the research information. And we're now in 2025. So if we look at 2023, I just want to highlight to you, we had about a target audience of 400 grade 10s in mathematics learners that we had there. Those learners, if you track them, should be in grade 12 this year only. But you can also already see from information that there's a higher intake in mathematics. There was a higher intake in mathematics or uptake of mathematics in 2024 by these learners. We're still analyzing the data, and we hope to see the improvements within the data sources that we'll get from enrollment as well as performance at the end of 2025, with no pressure on my colleagues here. And then we'll also look at 2023. We have about 6,260 teachers targeted across all grades. Why I want to highlight these 2 elements. We'll notice that the back on track is based on targeting both teachers as well as learners in the system. The research is showing that the target audience of teachers actually add a lot of value into the system if we can continue it. In 2024, we've changed that to about 9,000 teachers targeted support, including mathematics for grade 1. And then we had the just-in-time online sessions with our teachers in the FET, which is one of the big contributors to our results of 2024. Now, what does this do? The just-in-time process moved away from the concept of what is it that I have to teach to how I should actually teach that. That then also went back and filtered into the tutoring programs that we have in our schools to show exactly those tutors of how they should address the different areas that we find difficult in our curriculum and how it should be mediated with our learners through the tutor programs. So it's one of the flagship programs that I think we should continue with throughout our system because it really adds value to the development of our teachers as well. So it's called the JIT program. And therefore the just in time. In 2025, the program was once again amended because we evolved with time and of our learnings. So we focused basically on our primary school, that was our target audience, and no specific high schools were targeted in this case. However, we still have a focus, a very specific subject focus across all high schools within our system. And in that way, we address the deficits of specific issues in specific high schools to ensure that we can manage our resources more effectively, our human resources more effectively as well. You will notice that in 2025, we have grade 1 teachers for mathematics, about 480, which will now show you that we've moved in our system from the literacy process to introducing the mathematics. We did not specifically introduce mathematics and literacy at exactly the same time because our learning from our grade 1s is we did the 1 year, the literacy, and the next year we did the mathematics, and then the teachers also changed gear as we have trained them because then they focused only on the mathematics because that's current now. They want to make it work. What we allowed here is for the literacy and the reading process to be cemented. We've retrained, all the training has been done. We continue with our training. We will always have novice teachers. We'll always have people that need more support. So what we are doing now, we will be training, I think in September, the 480 mathematics teachers, and they will implement in a pilot our revised mathematics strategy, and then full implementation in 2027. That's our plans. But we also continue with the targeting of language in grade 8 because that is the mother of all subjects. And if we can get the grade 8s as a part of our processes correct, then the outcome will also increase. And in grade 200 mathematics, in both grade 8 and grade 9. And at a later stage, we can also analyze the challenge that we had with participation if we look at this at the grade 8 and 9s, because that feeds into our focus for 2025, which includes also assessment. So, colleague, committee, I also just want to, for the last part, indicate to you the FET Teacher JIT on Time program, and it's open. And I just want to highlight to everybody in the room, it is open to all teachers. Any teacher can log into this. And on average, we have about 500 teachers logging in, which is an achievement, which I think just to show the commitment of our teachers, just to show that our teachers are interested in to know how to translate practice from what into how they should do it. Then this is just for your knowledge. This is what is on our website. So all the resources that I refer to is available. It's available to all teachers. They can log in, they can go there, they can have a look at it, they can download it, they can utilize it, and they can amend it to suit their needs and their personality and what they can do. So that is what is available for them. I also want to highlight one of the other pillars in the BOT program is the parent and community involvement. And here I indicated already that we work with DCAS, but we've linked this program to our BOT schools, the schools that are that was part of the BOT program. So it's a home learning program, and I think on your right-hand side, I have two tables there. That is just to clarify the activities in which the activities and target audiences that this project is dealing with. So there you can see that we establish safety. We speak on safety, walking buses.
In logged.
Hmm?
We logged out. Oh, I'm logged out. Rest of it? Oh.
I'm not sure. I have to ask the chairperson if I'm logged out.
Well, we're hearing you, Mr. Lauriston, so it seems
Thank
to
you.
be fine.
Thank you. Then we have the homework support. I just want to highlight a few more. The homework support, the EduFun activities, which means we believe what you do without fun, you forget without regret. So they involve these learners in fun activities, as well as where learners are absent from school. These peers actually visit the learners and the parents to ensure and find out the reasons of why, to make sure that they are integrated in the schooling system. Again, they support them, different levels. We could also analyze this, and this is also part of our G4J projects that we introduced to ensure that our communities are then geared to ensure that they are supporting the learners. Then within the back on track, the teacher support, just to give you an overview, I'm not going to go through this, but we have business studies, economics, physical science.
Yeah, we've lost you now, Mr. Lauriston. I think the colleagues there, I think Mr. Lauriston is gone. As the point on the teacher support slide, reading and underpinning back on track intervention, underpinning reading and mathematics. I guess Mr. Lauriston's spaceship is passing Uranus or Pluto at this stage. Mhm. Okay, we're just waiting for connection once again. Okay, we're still waiting for connection.
Good afternoon, Chair. It's Mr. Benjamin calling. I've just been readmitted to the meeting and my colleagues appear to have all been kicked out of the meeting as well. I'm currently on my phone signing back into the meeting and Mr. Lauritsen is trying to do the same. So when you do hear his voice, if you could kindly just give us an indication that he is back in the meeting, Chair.
Okay, thanks. We hear you, Mr. Benjamin. We're just waiting. You must just not leave our solar system completely.
Chairperson, we're going to ask Dr. Schroeder to. Okay, I think we got Mr.
I'm in.
Okay, Mr. Lauriston, we see you coming
We
up
see
there,
my
that you are
screen.
back online with us. It looks like it. So you can proceed when you feel comfortable. I think we were at that teacher support on the left-hand side.
Yes. Why is this happening now? Okay, I have to speak from, because I can't see the presentation, but it's fine. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for just bearing with us. We will continue from this process on. Just to show you the alignment of. Okay. No, I'm not sure. I can show.
I think that's
We can hear you. We
Okay.
don't see the slides as yet. Okay, there, I think that's coming up, that learner support. We were at teacher support, I think.
Okay. Get it into presentation. It doesn't want to go there. Just doesn't want to go.
I think just move it on the side.
I'll just move it on the side. Okay. Let's see. Let's try something else. Chairperson, really sorry about this delay. Come on.
Look, I think you can talk to that learner
Okay, I'll
support
talk to it, yes.
and teacher support. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, the learner support is just to show you that during the RECEP evaluation, it was also shown that our 9 days of focused intervention contributed significantly to the dealing with the learning losses that the learners had, and it actually reduced the learning losses with about almost a year in many of the situations. Then our research and advocacy, I'll come back to that as well. That we have. It's delayed. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, look, you can unshare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just unshare and then reshare again.
I think
Okay,
you can just.
Juan, I'm just going to ask somebody else to open up the version and I'll move to their computer.
Mr. Lawrenston, I'm sharing the presentation. Can you see it?
We have to unshare now.
Yes, I think you can unshare from your side and then procedural officer will share from our side, Mr. Lauriston. I think we're close to the end, so we also don't quite, even if we don't share it, it's
Sorry,
fine.
Chairperson, I have a new name now. I'm Dr. Glennis Schroeder. So,
Okay.
right. Am I sharing? Can I move to the next slide, please?
Certainly, you can speak to the next slide. That's fine.
Okay. So the next slide is then about the research, and that is just the World Bank education sectors report. That is specifically the Western Cape report that is available there. And there, I just want to highlight the key findings. It speaks to about improved foundations of learning. And I think it speaks to foundations of learning, strengthening teacher effectiveness in the classroom, as well as invest in innovative educational reforms. What I want to highlight in this report is that the report clearly states that the Western Cape Education Department has all the elements of changing the trajectory of the learning outcomes in our system. However, we need to find those elements that can accelerate us into that achievement. And I think this is what we're now busy doing. How do we recalibrate and ensure that we have our ECD programs, our targeted interventions, our focused interventions for specific learners, as well as our teachers in the system, all of those elements put into one so that we then can actually accelerate what we would like to achieve. The next part is the RECEP report. I just want to highlight 3 points here. I just want to highlight the 3 points that we have here. I think the RECEP report highlights the balance between teacher focus as well as learner focus. And it's also based on the assumption that we are utilizing our data effectively. And it also speaks to sustainable improvement over time. So if you look at the extract that we've highlighted there, we speak to the grade 7 and grade 4 and grade 7 interventions. What it also says, it demonstrates significantly positive impact on learner performance in both language as well as mathematics. In Afrikaans and isiXhosa law schools, while teacher interventions were more strong in the English law schools. So it gave us that the balance that we are looking for. Where should, when, and how should we focus on, or what areas or what schools should we focus on the learner, and in what schools should we focus on the teacher. But the last bullet that is there, number 1, it says interventions resulting in nearly a full year of learning recovery through attendance of only 9 Saturday sessions. And I think that is instrumental in our process of what we would like to achieve here, because the aim of the Back on Track was to ensure that we deal with the learning losses, but at the same time, we're utilizing this learning to build the system into something that is much stronger and that we can utilize moving forward. So the last slide that we have there is the graph that I want to show you, and that is just to give you a preliminary indication of the results and the impact that we have there. And I want you to focus on the first slide, and that is the pink is there for mathematics, which shows the movement of the graph into the right-hand side. The other two is grade 5 and grade 6. And what we're trying to show you, those are the codes that the learners achieved in the system. Code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the assessments. So if you look at grade 5 and grade 6, then you find there's a great movement in the grade 4 class where we actually had where we had the intervention that there's a movement there, and equally so with the home languages that we had there. So Chairperson, from our side, I'm saying that our interventions are clearly aligned with what we would like to achieve in our annual performance plan. The national DBE plan, as well as the sector plan and the NDP as well. We're on track. However, we have to make sure that we keep our focus, that we strengthen what the elements that we have, and that we don't add too many more of these interventions. Otherwise, it will also create another challenge of where we have too many interventions and not enough focus on what we would like to change and achieve in the system. However, we also work in a changing world, so we will have to make sure that our teachers are therefore equipped for the future in line with the G20 discussions that will be taking part in our province as well. And I think in August, we will have education in Daba leading up to the G20 engagements. Thank you very much from my side.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lauriston, for taking us through this presentation. I think it is certainly a most interesting presentation, and I think thank you for setting out what the work is that you've been undertaking and the targets that you're setting. And I imagine, while I just give colleagues a moment to think on questions that they have, obviously it is how one measures these achievements that one makes and the ongoing assessments there. If you can perhaps also just comment on how that must be done, because clearly what the department is busy with, it's a very complex exercise in terms of devising these interventions and what one does. And I suppose what I would just like to know is how one is able to keep on the measurement process all the time to make sure that you're getting there. So that's one thing. I'm going to hand over to Member Walters for the first question.
Chair, you touched on one question I wanted to ask, which is a traditional question from me, is the outcomes measurement. Now, there was some stats, that showed us the benefits of impacts, and I just think that's the kind of thing that we're going to be needing as a committee in the future to see continuously what the impact is. And there was another question that was answered by Mr. Lauriston. There's also such a thing as too many interventions and sticking to the core business, but I'm satisfied by his input there. There's just, during the course of the presentation, some of the terminology sounds like it's a pilot programs being used in terms of the interventions. At one point, there's a reference to promising results. I think it was on, one of the, in terms of teacher support, just to pick that out, there was a if I look at the number of teachers involved, a lot of it sounds like pilot programs. And maybe I'm wrong. That is my question. Then, if these are these pilot programs, and if so, at what point are we assessing pilot programs that should be mainstreamed as an approach in education in general? Because it certainly looks very sound to me. And is my assumption incorrect? And if it's pilot programs, at what point is it going to be mainstreamed and no longer be pilot programs? So, Joe, I hope that makes sense. Outcomes, we mustn't overdo it. And then are these pilot programs and is it something that is going to be mainstreamed if it's pilot programs? Thanks.
Thanks, Member Walters. I think those are very important aspects. Then we've got Member Boyson and Member Kaiser-Philander.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, mine is a comment, and I think we don't do it often enough to give credit where credit is due. I'm always in awe when one listens to the presentations within the department, what they do, how they do it, and there is a lot of own time which they are putting into these programs, and one must actually take our heads off to that. And I sometimes wonder, where do they get the time to do all of this? But they are doing it. And the only time when we focus on them is when we look at results and we politicize results, but they're actually doing a great job. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Boyson. Member Kaiser-Philander.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think on my side, I can echo the sentiments expressed by Member Boyson. Chairperson, and therefore welcome the presentation. Perhaps just if Mr. Lauriston can direct me to the program specifically that focus on the lack of the reading culture, especially out of the school environment. I know the WCD has got these literacy programs, these NGO intervention, and mention was made of the teacher development initiatives. I would just like to have insight into the progress into disadvantaged areas in the province, Chairperson. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's an important point there. I see Member Christians, and then I think Member Stevens, have you as well?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And I also want to echo the sentiments of our colleagues here about the excellent presentation. I actually want to just latch on to what Member Kaiser-Philander said. Chair, the question is parent and community. So you have the upskilling of parents through home learning. You have these things, but we know in communities, remember the poor communities, you don't have access to the social media things, platforms that webinars and conferences and those type of things. And then also, if you go to the communities, and I'm even thinking of, the poorest of the poor, and where parents cannot read and write, right? So it's actually extremely difficult for those parents to contribute to the success of their children. So the question then is, if the department can give us what are they doing, to get those communities involved, and then you have the drug and alcohol abuse in communities where parents are not interested in the education. And like I said, this is an excellent tool, and we must take our hats off for the department. But you have these unwilling learners, you have these parents that's on drugs and those. If they can give us, so because they speak, Mr. Lawrenson has spoken about the whole of society approach. So you reach out to NGOs, you reach out to all of those other things. I just want to maybe an update on how's it going in those communities and how we're assisting those children. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I think that some very valuable comments there, Member Christians, Member Stevens, and then I think Member Walters probably as a follow-up, and then I think we can hand over to the department.
I also want to thank the department for the good work. My question is actually based on Member Philander and on Member Christians. I want to know what technology materials are going to be available in the classrooms, especially in the underprivileged areas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Stevens. Member Walters.
Chair, there was a comment by Member Christians that reminded me as well. I picked up during the course of the presentation, there's as part of the interventions is checking on children that are not at school. And it was something that came up during some of our oversight visits as well. Maybe I'm outdated in my understanding, but I was under the impression it's illegal not to put your child in school. And I find it very promising, that type of intervention from the Department of Education. But a good question in my mind would be, what do schools do to get children there, and what are they entitled to do? Is it actually at some point something where action has to be taken against parents? So I just would love to hear the view on that. But I think that's a very promising aspect, given our oversight visit that we picked up in this presentation. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Member Walters. I suppose what what has come through in these comments and questions is also this whole aspect then of data collection, data analysis, data collection, which is also put down as one of the priority areas in the action plans from the World Bank's sector analysis. So, I think it all just indicates at the amount of work that the department is doing. So I think we are very impressed with that. But we'd like to hear the department's comments on this range of questions, which I suppose is we've covered quite a wide field there.
Thank you, Chairperson. And thank you very much for the comments and the questions. I'll start off with Honourable Walters' questions and comments on the assessment and the ongoing processes that are involved in implementing. I think it's important to realize, and I've emphasized it, that we can only track the implementation of our decisions over time. But one of the things that we can do to track at a very early stage is to do a process evaluation. And I think many times we do it wrong. We go for an impact evaluation too quickly while we don't have actually a clear understanding of the process. And I think that is what we are trying to achieve here by involving the RECEP and involving I think the World Bank also gave us that opinion. And I think that for me is something that we will focus on to make sure that we're on track with our implementation processes. That's the process evaluation, and not really jumping into an evaluation because it doesn't give you the answer. It's going to show that we're not working, and then we're going to change gear, and over time we have nothing to show at the end of the day. And that will then obviously lead to the impact that we have in the system. I think what we would like to also get from the research is seeing that we have clarity of purpose. We focus on both the teacher and the learner. So our success at this point in time cannot be ascribed to any one of the two interventions. It's a collective, and others, I have to say. I've mentioned some, but you have to remember it can be what we did for the teachers on the BOT program, it could be what the learners or others that we did for the entire system that contributed to it. And that is to at the beginning, very clearly identify what it is that we would like to measure. And I think that clarity will give us the improvement in the learning outcomes that we have. I think that the terminology member is that maybe it was my mistake that I mentioned there. I think I mentioned under 480 mathematics teachers. That's not a pilot, that is part of the Back on Track program. So apology if I used the incorrect terminology there. Then for Member Boyson, thank you very much. And I think the issue on time is really a issue, because many people around this table, our spouses do believe that we are married to the WCD first and then to them. So thank you for acknowledging that. We really appreciate that. Member Kaiser Philander, focus on the culture and the parents. And I think it is important that we there mobilize, because we have a lot of NGOs that are interested in working within our sphere and our schools. However, we cannot overburden a specific school or area what we have. So what we do now currently, we meet with any person who would like to assist us to advance our processes, because we can't extend our human resources anymore. So what we do, we meet with NGOs and we clarify with them exactly what it is that we would like to achieve, and whether they are willing to buy into that process and amend accordingly, but not just come in to tell us, I've got money from person X and I would like to have this program managed there. At the end of the day, we create a tension and a competition in the school, where we have, for example, also career clubs that I didn't mention, is something that we try to implement in all our schools. And the reason for that is because your middle class child has reference points in their community. Our challenging children don't have reference points of vision in their communities. And that's the argument that we are also trying to push. Besides just saying we would like you to achieve the learning outcomes, we would try to create a vision with you, because once we have that, we find that dealing with discipline and all else becomes much easier, and things like that. So the parental program that you referred to, we are busy implementing that. And I must say, we did a lot on the other pillars, but we have a focus now currently on the parental involvement. There are some of our districts that are doing good work already. They have brilliant activities. I think I speak of Overberg, that is a Mindkeep project running in some of them. And in South, we have an English hub situation that we would like to establish now. But those things need to be institutionalized and then formalized across our province. And I think that is where we have the broader engagement of the community now, to ensure that that pillar of our strategy actually gets lived out more prominently, because we do realize that as well. I think that also brings me to Member Christian's question on the literacy issue in specifically challenging areas, and I've indicated that we're going for an area like the Mitchells Plain, the Metro South area, to actually enhance that. But I also want to highlight to you that we are getting 14,000 candidates from the Presidential Youth Project. If we use them correctly, we can substitute for those factors that you have highlighted. For example, no, they don't have a person to sit with them to do homework. They don't have a person who can read for them and things like that. But it's how we're going to orientate them into the programs that we have to do there, and then very carefully have agreement with our schools that those are not teachers, but extension to assist with learners that experience difficulty at home or others in our classrooms. So those are the responses. And then to Member Stevens, the technology in our classrooms, in all the schools that we have the math curriculum online. We do have technology in all those schools, and those basically cover I can't exactly, but I can maybe give you a written response on that, what technology are in those schools, so that you have a clear vision of where they actually fit in. But all our schools and that's the majority of our schools who do utilize the MCO, Math Curriculum Online, and they do need technology, and they have the technology in their schools to actually do that. Chairperson, if there's any one that I maybe have missed. Oh, the data collection and the tracking of our learners. I think that was your comment at the last point, and that was we do have a system to track the performance of our learners and to make sure that they actually achieve the BOT program, all those learners that are on the BOT program that we have in there, and we do have developed our own dashboard to make sure that they we can track both the attendance as well as the performance of these learners in the system to make sure that we drive in the right direction. And then the policy on school absenteeism, I'm not the expert on it, but in my previous life, I served as a circus manager as well as a district director. But I do think that the current legislation has formalized that, and that our colleagues in the education department will give directives in this regard to ensure that learner absenteeism is managed according to the current legislation that was promulgated. Yeah. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks very much, Mr. Lauriston, for those replies. I'm looking around the room to see if we have any more further questions, hands. I see Member Christian's hand going up, and Mr. Member Walters, is your hand as well.
No, it's just the comment of the 14,000, I don't know what you call them, that's going to be deployed, a presidential program that's going to be deployed. Now, previously, as it was teacher assistants, so they're moving away from that like a tutorship. The question that I'm asking is, so those 14,000 will be directed at where extra classes, help the learners that don't have a support system in place. So how do they get to that? Parents they don't have the support. How do they get to the nitty-gritties to make sure that they help those who are most vulnerable? Because I think the 14,000, if we look at it, it will be too few. But if you help the most vulnerable, then we're getting somewhere. So how do they get to, how do you allocate these 14 ambassador, whatever you want to call them, presidential program to allocations in the districts? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. I think that is one of the big challenges that we have. Member Walters.
I think Member Christians asked my question just better than I would have asked it. So, but I was actually on the same. How do you allocate? Maybe I should just add that I find this a very, very interesting presentation because I can see a lot of thought went into it. There's a lot of deep experience behind it, and I also sense that this is part of the kind of alternative models that, Chair, you were referring to that we're busy developing. But the key thing is, and I think it aligns with what Member Christians asked there, is in terms of giving the support to people that don't have, I believe the term that was used, those reference points, those examples, that kind of support. How would that be allocated? And I think we're on the same wavelength there.
I'm just looking to the other members. Do you have anything to add there at this stage? Okay, I think we'll hand over to yourselves, Mr. Lauriston.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I just want to clarify, they are still being teacher assistants. They're not teachers in any way. We can add any name to them, but they teacher assistants that we have to be very clear on. I think what is important for us, Member Christians asked the question that that maybe we should also highlight, and that is we have term called, if we want to make the system effective, we need to speak on early identification of learners. So the early identification of our learners will give you a holistic picture, not only of the six. If let's make a real life example. Let's take grade ones. You cannot measure the 6 perceptual skills in grade 1 if you don't measure the cognitive levels as well as the emotional levels, or make a judgment call on that on the child, and then decide whether that child is actually ready and in what ability group that child will function, to make sure that we build a solid foundation for that child moving forward. That information should be captured in a profile for each and every learner at school level. So that process, Member Christian and Walters, almost links for me to what we would like to achieve in the system, because that can change the trajectory of our processes. The Presidential Youth Project, or as teacher assistants that we will receive, we're busy with our HR department to ensure that those allocations are done to the lower quintiles in our primary schools. Okay, that's one thing that we have there. But we also have to note that there are limitations, that it won't be able to send them to out in the community. It needs to happen within the school premises and school time for due purposes of safety. But if we take the World Bank report, it also advised that certain learners need about an additional 90 minutes a week to allow them to catch up in certain areas of their work, and they will then be able to function optimally in the system without ever repeating again. And I think that is the focus that we have, that we would like to build through this process. So if we take that and we can channel our funding in such a way that we have a baseline in grade 1, because that baseline will feed into teacher development in grade R as well, because we will then know whether the learners are receiving the required correct development opportunities in grade R, but it also will determine the trajectory of the child moving forward. But we deal with a deficit very quickly, very succinctly, and very focused as early as possible in the system. Chairperson, that's my response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lauriston and team. I'm just looking around the room to see whether we are done on questions. I don't know, can I get a nod over there? I think that is so. So I think at this stage, I would like to thank you, Mr. Lauriston, and your team and the department for the work that you're undertaking, and for the very insightful presentation that has been provided to us. I think it is certainly, we have to be very, very thankful for the enormous amount of work that is being undertaken, and this constant striving for improvement, for us to get to international benchmarks, and the type of innovation that is constantly being done, and the programs that are being implemented, so that we can assess and measure our outcomes, so that we can get that level of improvement. So I think thank you very much for being with us today, and I think we can then in effect release your team, and you can get back to, I think, all the other work that you no doubt have to do.
Chairperson, thank you from our side. We're really appreciative of this engagement, and I think for me, the benefit of an engagement like this is when we work, you develop tunnel vision, you start believing the way that you do things is the only correct way to do it. And I think as soon as critical friends are posing questions, that you have to reflect on, you start seeing that possibly you could take another direction and think differently about things. And I really appreciate the engagement that we have here. So from my side, thank you very much. And we really appreciate the work that you guys are also doing in keeping us honest and sane here in what we are doing. And good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lauriston. So I think while the education team then leaves, we can then perhaps just move on to the other matters that we want to deal with at the meeting before we go and relax with a cup of tea or coffee or something to drink. And maybe that's an incentive for us to try and get through the rest of the program here. I think if let us just think on any resolutions or actions that we would like to follow on in terms of the discussion that we've just had. Member Walton.
Chair, I really like the approach by the department in this regard. I really see a depth there, understanding of the challenges there. It's, in fact, I find it an educational experience myself to just listen to how they approach things. So I do think as a committee we need to support this type of initiative and ask for regular feedback. And I think you made a very profound point. We mustn't kill a good idea by demanding prematurely results. That you must, it's certainly in its initial stages of an approach like this, you have to evaluate the process. But I do think it would be good if we are, as a committee, involved in following that process. And then, secondly, Chair, again, I see the transversal issues come up here. That we have a department that is part of the solution of really, at the end of the day, creating lots of empowered individuals successful in life. And again, I would urge that we look at issues of truancies, learner support, the kind of disadvantages, particularly kids from disadvantaged backgrounds have, that how that the interventions by the education department, the intervention by social development, etc., that there's alignment there, because I again see touch points. They all have part of the problem, and we must make the puzzle pieces fit. So there's those two recommendations that I support, Chair.
Christians.
Chair, this might not, the department is doing all of this work, but I'm just reminded while I was sitting here, I don't know if you saw in the newspaper, you have the problems at schools itself. So you come with these interventions, and you have, I don't know if you saw that Bridgetown, where what's it, 31 learners that was expelled because it was a drug. The one group had drugs, and then the other group tried to sell drugs, and they were all suspended. So all this hampers the progress. It hampers the problems at our schools, and I'm specifically thinking of the drug-related gangs at our schools. So I don't know. I'm just looking at, here you have a department that's taking us forward. We want results, but we're not looking at the other aspects that's threatening that progress. So I don't know how we can, I don't know what we're going to do, because I was very concerned with the Bridgetown story, and it's only one story that highlighted in the media, but there's many other stories. So now we blame the department, and they come with this good interventions, but we have these other problems. I don't know how we're gonna address that, because the department can maybe give us a briefing on, how this impact our schooling system for learners to excel, but they not excelling. So it's those social elements that's hampering this. So I don't know. I'm asking the other members just to help me to put something forward. How do we get around that, Chairperson?
Yes, certainly. I think because I think what you are saying, member, is probably um, it's really almost a transversal type of issue that we need to raise with various other departments, and how does one try and engender a better culture within those departments. And I'm not quite sure how we quite deal with that. So maybe some thoughts there. I don't know anybody else who wants to add in terms of resolution. I'm just looking at procedural officer. Are you trying to capture what we have? Member Walters, Member Kaiser Philander.
Chair, I think we are all on the. It's probably just difficult to express it, but in my mind, what you need for every community, and particularly disadvantaged communities that are plagued by these types of social ills, you need not only an IDP. If you take it at a local government level, you need a environmental, a social plan, and a very clearly defined breakdown of what the various departments at various levels of government are doing, and leadership to drive it. It's actually a very local, holistic approach that is needed, and the best that I can do to maybe this is going to sound very politician, but I think we should actually brainstorm that as a committee. I can't believe I'm saying it because I'm one of the people who believe good ideas go to committees and die, but I do think it's actually something, because we're all sensing it, that there's more needed. We need to perhaps bring in other people, but I actually think it would be a good idea to explore whether the committee, even if it's at an informal level, get together and brainstorm some ideas, or maybe get experts together to brainstorm ideas, because what we have is, I believe we are well-meaning politicians. We have hard-working, well-intentioned officials and staff, but the puzzle pieces aren't coming together. And I think there is maybe a bit of outside of the box interaction and engagement required. But that's what I think. You actually need a very, very comprehensive local plan tying all the pieces together in every single community. Whether it's possible or not, I don't know. But that, I think, is what's needed. And that ties in literally at the level of, this is how we keep the school safe. This is how we raise the standards. This is how we get all the kids there. That's how we deal with the drug problems. You actually need that level of engagement and leadership at a very local level. That's what I think we'll be thinking of.
I would imagine we're looking at encouraging a social compact at community level.
It's of course way past our committee, but that's what I think we're talking about.
Yeah. Member Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I can certainly agree with what was said. And in terms of the Social Development Committee, that is one of the issues actually not officially on the program, but that we're moving towards in terms of how does these social ills as expressed, for example, lead to school dropouts? What are the factors that contributes to that? And I think there's an opportunity for both committees to jointly venture into what are those factors, what are the various departments doing, are they working in isolation, are they collaboration in order to get to the root of this. But also I do appreciate especially what Mr. Lauriston said. Now, when you're into the job, you tend to get tunnel vision as to how this is done. But at that certain point, I believe that with both committees, we can come up with innovation, new ideas, perhaps as the departments haven't seen it in that perspective. So that would be my contribution and my wish for this committees to jointly go into that venture of bringing the social department in, as well as education, and also for the mere fact that I know education, for example, has got social workers, social development has got social workers. To have those one profession, but in different capacities, to have them also both in the room will also enrich us and greatly assist. But how can we actually tackle the root of what is happening within schools, but also within society as well? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, certainly I'm going to make some comments a little bit later, and I think possibly that we can look at that further. Member Christians,
Yeah,
I'm just
no-
looking at Member Stevens and
Yeah.
Boysons. Have you got any comments?
No, Chair, I'm a total agreement. What caught my eye is why did the school not pick it up early? Because they only picked it up because there was two rival gangs. Because it means that the drugs were sold for a long time before the other gang came to the school. Now, Chair, I think there's a lot of experts, as Member Thomas has said. There's a lot of experts, and as Member Kaiser said, maybe we must get a briefing from those experts, social workers, whoever we think can contribute, because my biggest concern, Chair, and this is really my heart, my biggest concern is we expect from the learners X, we expect from the department Y, but it's not the same, because I cannot go to school if I must watch my back. I must stay out of school because of gang violence, because of drugs. So I cannot compete fairly with the next learner. That's my biggest concern. You see, Chair. So I'm thinking, again, as I said, to get the two committees together, get some experts together, and let's look at where's the problem areas, and let's maybe zone in and see how we can assist, and just to make sure that when our learners go to school, they're in a safe environment to learn to make a success of their lives. Otherwise, we sit with gangsters on the street. They bunk school and then they dropouts, and we sit with again a gangster problem. I'm just trying to say, can we not intervene before it gets to that? So that is it. My concern is for the learner to excel in conditions, that they can pass matric and go to university. That is my big concern. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Christian. Member Stevens.
Yes, like Member Christian say now, the new thing that's in the schools now, especially in the upmarket schools, is where these gangster bosses, they putting learners there now to try to get the learners that goes to school to learn into drugs or into gangsterism. And if they don't want to join up, they get bullied after school. And that's one thing. And then the other thing, then there's schools that expelled learners on primary school, maybe for stealing a teacher's phone or for fighting in school. And a lot of those children from primary school are roaming the streets. And those are the children that the gangsters recruit and make gangsters of. And there's quite a few in the areas where maybe the social worker could step in. Maybe there's a problem at home, but nobody, the principals or the school doesn't involve or trying to get hold of the parents. And if they can't get hold of a parent, they just leave their child. And that child is just in the streets because there's no parent like following up on their child. And that we must also look at. Chair, thank you.
Yes, I think certainly what you're saying is we're sitting with a multi-level problem. It just depends how deep the problem is and now, and how that cross-cutting process can be done. What I've just been thinking of, and we'll touch on it just now on our program for going into the new financial year on what we should do. And, procedural officer and I just spoke earlier about possible site visits. And, certainly from a site visit perspective and possibly also coming to a committee, there's a lot of work that's been done in the Toes-Runton community outside George by 7 Passes Initiative, which is where, from a social responsibility point of view, what that initiative is trying to do is to keep learners at a place in the afternoons where they can do their homework and try and work in that way. And at the same time, I think it's the Institute of Security Studies have got there's one of the key members of that institute lives in that area. And it's also been key in trying to work and creating this type of social compact. Because at the same time, what you now hear in latter times is that when you've got learners waiting for their bus to go to school, they're telling the bus, no, wait, we still want to smoke and we want to do whatever we want to do before the bus then leaves. And I believe they get up to other nefarious activities as well before they get onto the bus. So, it's quite a complex type of issue. And so I think we must just reflect and maybe in dealing with that, we can perhaps find some way of finding a pilot a little study.
Sorry, Chair, I just want to throw in one name, Professor Jonathan Jansen, that did the turnaround at Cressway in Retreat. Remember a few years ago, Cressway, when we visited there, they had a 36% pass rate, and he took it up to 64, I think, %. But he and another gentleman, because he went back to the community that he was brought up, maybe we must look at things like that, where there's previous role models, and they went back to tell them the importance of education. So one of the professionals I'm just talking about is Professor Jansen. There's many of them that we can call and say, how did you get a 30%, whatever percent, 100% pass rate, in 1 year?
Okay, certainly. I think let's take that into account. Our CEPO's hand is up.
Yeah, I'm trying to put everything into a nutshell here. There's a lot going on. But I just also like to bring the members to the attention of the Provincial Steering Committee, the PSG2, which includes representatives from the WCD, Social Development and Community Safety, and they focus on oversight over the school safety and other social economical problems. This was a briefing that was done about 2 terms back when it was highlighted, but there wasn't an actual briefing to the committee on what the PSG2 does and how the involvement is in the schools from that point of view. But there is a representative from each of those departments that sit on that and they discuss it. It is some way of looking at collaborating all of that and what they bring to the party.
Look, it's probably also part of our provincial security strategic plan for the next 5 years. There's probably something like that, and maybe what we must then do is try and link that in there. Can we then perhaps move to resolution and adopt? Because I think
Chair, I just wanted to opportunistically say I propose what she said. It's a
yeah. Okay, so is that happy for one resolution? And then this whole idea on are we fairly covered at this stage in terms of the process that's been adopted by WCED, and that we will in due course then follow up on that? I don't think we necessarily need a resolution on that at this stage. Everybody happy? PO, you happy? I think that deals with that aspect. We've got some consideration and adoption of draft minutes to deal with on some of our previous meetings. And I think you may well have copies in front of you. We've got a meeting that we held way back in November last year, on the 29th of November, it would appear, where we then dealt with, it was deliberation on vote 5, education in the schedule of the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill, where we dealt with vote 5. And we then came to the conclusion that we considered that and we adopted that process. And we got minutes before us then. And I think what at the time we noted in particular the impact then of cutting those 2,407 teaching posts due to that budget shortfall. And I think, as you recall, there were certain amounts that were then also made available to the Education Department to see them through on that year. So I don't know if there are any comments on that and whether we can then, if so, move to the adoption. Member.
Thank you very much, Chair. No comments or amendments on pages 1 and 2. I therefore move that we adopt the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. And member,
Second, Chair.
thank you, Member Walters. So that means those minutes are adopted. Our next meeting's minutes that we have before us was the meeting held on Tuesday, 11 February, which was a meeting then that we dealt with the admissions update for the 2025 academic year and the status of school readiness and the National Senior Certificate results and pass rate. So that was a fairly detailed and lengthy meeting. Hey, have we got anybody to adopt? I guess.
Sorry, I actually have a comment there. I think it's putting it very diplomatically. Members of the public were present at the meeting. It became apparent that I think there's just a correction, members of the public. It was certainly not the public. Members of the public wished to participate. The committee could not agree on whether to allow. I don't believe that is entirely factual. I think it's one aspect of it. The fact is that meeting was disrupted by members of the public, calling points of orders, screaming. It was unacceptable, and I think that needs to be reflected in the meeting. And I also believe that if that kind of thing is facilitated by any politician, it should be a matter for our own ethics committee. That last part is maybe not for the minutes, but the key thing is, for our to be included in the minutes. But what I'm saying is there was a clear disruption of the meeting by individuals.
I think if we perhaps looking at a way forward there, that we got members of the public were present at the meeting, it became apparent that members of the public wished to participate, and there was an attempt to disrupt the meeting. Would we be in support? So if we can
Support,
get.
Chair. Move for adoption.
Our memory as well is Tuesday, the 20th of February. We had a virtual meeting, and at that virtual meeting, we then received a briefing by WCED on its quarterly performance reports from April, in effect through to December. So that was for those 9 months where they gave us an update on that meeting. And I mean, one of the recommendations that came out that we get the department to regularly update us on a quarterly basis, as well as also deal with the progress on registering ECDs and what those requirements would be going forward. So that was our meeting at that stage.
Chair, I wasn't in the meeting, but I'm FC. I'm CF in that meeting. I was apology there, but it's FC, not CF.
We received a memo that you changed your name. So. Okay, apologies for that. That was inserted there to check that you actually read the minutes. Okay, Member Kaiser Verlander.
Chair, I just wanted to check. I see it's correctly stated that I tendered an apology for that meeting. I see Member Masipa is under additional and not alternate. Is he not an alternate member to this meeting? Additional. Sure. Thank you.
Right, if we, with that, if we can, noting the apology, so therefore it's between members Boyson, Walters and Stevens for adoption of this.
I propose adoption, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you to the members for doing that. So I think that is bringing us ever closer to the adjournment of the meeting, because we can then have some refreshments. And with that, I adjourn the meeting this afternoon at 14:56. Thank you very much for attending.